So, over the past couple of months, Hasbro and DHX Media haven't been doing a very good job at keeping their assets private. Before the official movie released, it was leaked online in full 1080p. Then shortly afterwards, the rest of Season 7 was leaked, and even now, the unpolished episodes of Season 8, possibly some from Season 9, and a potential reboot have been made available online. I would joke about them being a sinking ship with all the leaks they've been springing, but from what I've seen, I've got high hopes for the direction My Little Pony's going. Actually, scratch that. To rhyme with porpoises, they said this underwater reptile is a friggin' tortoise.
Turtles live underwater. Tortoises live on land. Why do you think this entire channel is themed around me, a turtle, being underwater? I mean, come on.
Hello interwebs, I'm Eric and welcome to TheLooneyTurtle. Before I get into the meat of this video, I just wanted to announce that I will be a community guest for BabsCon this year. At the moment, I'm planning on hosting 2 panels and attending 2 others, but aside from that, I'm going to be all over the place with my ridiculous green suit and top hat. With that out of the way, one of the main things that was leaked included the My Little Pony Show Bible. For my uninitiated viewers, a show Bible is the blueprints for a show. It establishes the characters, locations, and overall sets up some of the rules for the show. I was able to read this on Imager, and the very first passage loosely establishes that a good brand has a world with characters that are governed by a set of established rules. To me, it brought to mind that while there are a lot of outlandish ideas presented in the show, the audience can find a sense of logic to it all. This got me thinking about the past 7 seasons of My Little Pony and how the fandom's changed over the years. Everything started out with a dedicated fandom, but around season 3, the audience's opinions started to shift, and a few of them either stopped watching the show or left the fandom entirely. There's been a lot of discussion on the fandom's oversaturation or changes in the staff, but today I want to focus on how the writers might have started neglecting their world in favor of self-contained episodes and the ever-present merchandising.
What? How'd they stop caring about this world? It's always been Equestria, right?
Yes, but this world, just like any good fantasy land, has rules to it. Ever since season 1, there have been things established in Equestria that give it structure. They give the audience some ground rules for how the world operates. There are 4 different pony races, a pony society that acts very much like mankind, and creatures that dwell in a realistic forest by our standards, but an extremely unnatural and foreboding location in Equestria. The audience doesn't question these things for the same reason that no one would question how bending the elements works in Avatar, or how Hulk and Captain America got their powers. It's fictional. Not everything has to make sense within our world, but it can make sense within these fictional worlds. However, if you're going to introduce something, it needs to make sense within the rules that you've established. Otherwise, you could break the audience's immersion. As an example, in The Last Airbender, all of the airbenders were wiped out. How can there be more out there? Aang was lucky enough to escape, but aside from his family tree, there weren't many ways to introduce new airbenders to this world. However, after harmonic convergence, the writers were able to introduce new airbenders because a big spiritual change had happened to this world. In the world of Avatar, bending has always been tied to someone's spiritual connection to the elements. Had this not been established, then harmonic convergence wouldn't have been a good reason to introduce more airbenders. But within that context, it fits within the established rules of this world. That simple explanation presents a potential problem within the Avatar universe. There isn't a short-term way to introduce new airbenders, and it solves that problem in a way that the audience can digest without many lingering questions. In the same vein, My Little Pony had to answer a similar question, and I don't believe that their solution was handled very well. Up to the end of season 2, the only 2 Alicorns established in the world of Equestria were Celestia and Luna, the leaders of Equestria and the ponies responsible for controlling the day and night. The idea of another Alicorn seemed foreign at the time because the show has put more focus on explaining how the other 3 races fit into this world. Unicorn, Pegasi, and Earth ponies seem to have their own strengths, but there aren't many Alicorns, and their exact role hasn't really been explored. Is it a family tree? Are they rarely ever born? Is there a race of Alicorns somewhere? Where do they come from? What makes an Alicorn? The show Bible doesn't really explore Alicorns outside of Celestia, so the writers needed to be asking these types of questions with the introduction of Cadence, Twilight, and Flurryheart. I would hope that they put some thought and effort into brainstorming how this works, but for me, it's just been a big confusing mess.
What's confusing about him?
Well, in the Journal of the 2 Sisters, when talking about raising and lowering the sun and moon, it said that Star Swirl was always one of the 6 for both the raising and the setting, but it takes a powerful amount of magic, and what No Pony told us was that unicorns who volunteer for the job can only withstand the task for a short period of time before their magic is completely depleted.
forever.
But then Luna later says, raising and lowering the sun and moon wouldn't cause us any harm. In fact, if the myths Seed Red were true, it would actually rejuvenate us, making our magic that much more powerful. How is Alicorn magic replenished by raising and lowering the sun and moon if unicorns, which can ascend to Alicornhood, lose their magic to the craft?
Well, it's because they've changed.
How? It's the same world, the same magic. What makes it act differently on an Alicorn?
The same way that verbal and nonverbal magic exists in Harry Potter?
The two aren't mutually exclusive. Verbal magic is like training wheels for the nonverbal studies. With Alicorns, we're talking about something comparable to a battery where one is drained by an activity for one group, while the other is modified in a way that it gains power from performing the same exact task. Where does the magic come from, and why doesn't it apply to unicorns? Another issue has been the touch-and-go nature of Celestia and Luna's history. In the Journal of the Two Sisters, it's established that thousands of years ago they didn't have their cutie marks, but they were already Alicorns, almost implying that they were born as Alicorn. But then we get scenes like this.
The birth of an Alicorn is something Equestria has never seen.
It is beyond even our understanding.
The book was in the show, and even Twilight quoted a passage from it word for word. So, did Celestia and Luna ascend? How'd they live so long? How'd they become Alicorns before getting their cutie mark? Do they have a different lifespan after becoming an Alicorn?
Well, Megan McCarthy said that Twilight won't outlive her friends.
So that means one of three things. This book isn't canon, Twilight wasn't given immortality by becoming an Alicorn, or the rest of the main six are going to live longer lives to match Twilight's extended life. As a member of the audience, I'm just left to wonder which one they're going with. The writers don't seem to be trying to explain Alicorns to the audience, which is understandable. It's a kids show. We want kids to aspire to be something. But this confusion can and has broken some of the audience's immersion in the world of Equestria.
Okay, well, how could they have added more Alicorns without breaking the viewer's immersion?
Well, first, don't overcomplicate things. The more details you put into something, the harder it is for the audience to digest, and the easier it is to contradict yourself. So, how does someone become an Alicorn? The simple answer would be that they are created later in life, similar to Twilight and Cadence. Next, how do they affect the world? In the Journal of the Two Sisters, Amy Keating Rogers opted to define two separate types of magic, but the simpler explanation would be that Alicorns are stronger and thus they handle the day and night easier. It doesn't deny unicorns the capability of performing the task, but there is a reason behind why they don't do it instead. It requires a higher level of magic or a lot of unicorns. It's easier for everyone if Alicorns just did it instead. Finally, because this is going to be a lingering thread, don't introduce a baby Alicorn. It makes sense biologically, but it opens up too many questions. Why hasn't this happened in the 1,000 years Equestria has been around? How is she different from the other four? And what merit is there to Alicornhood if you can just be born into it? With that said, what do you think? While this video focuses primarily on Alicorns, there have been other times where the show introduced an element that broke the audience's immersion. Think of the rainbow powers, the somewhat conflicting lore surrounding Starscroll the Bearded, or even the use of existing material for magic when it hasn't been established in previous episodes. Has My Little Pony broken its world over the years, or am I just overthinking it? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, then consider ringing that bell to become a member of our Loonification squad today. If you really enjoyed this video, then you could consider becoming a Patreon and get some of those fun little goodies like topic suggestions and turtle soup.
What was that last one?
Soup served from one of those shells you've been making. Gotta do something with them. But with that said, I hope to see all of you in the next video.